Hi, everyone. It's Brandon Miller here. I'm here with Norbert Stansley. Norbert, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing awesome. So, Norbert and I wanted to do a quick little masterclass today, and we wanted to talk about immigrating to Canada from the United States. The reason that we've chosen to target this area is because we've had a lot of inquiries. A lot of people think that it's inquiries based on, the election and a lot of the things that happen, and you hear about all of this in the news. But it's not actually entirely correct, and the reason it's not is because we're hearing a lot of different messaging from people. Some of the things that we hear is that people are thinking a little bit longer term. So it's not more of a reactionary push, but a lot of people are concerned about what things are going to look like in 20 or 30 years. They're thinking about what their retirement years are going to look like. They're thinking about what the life is going to look like for their children, and they're really planning so that they have a second option or a second passport in Canada. So we've decided to delve into a few things, and the reason is because a lot of times people are curious about the benefits, and you hear a lot of people like in the news. It's like, oh, there's this big spike with people from the United States that are coming to Canada, and it's a nice little headline, and then it dies off. Um, we're the guys that are actually addressing those calls and emails and different things like that. So we wanted to go over and we wanted to just put together a brief little presentation for everybody here. All right. So are we good to go, Norbert, or what?
I'm good to go. Let's get started.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's. Whoa, where'd you go? There we are. Okay, so let's dive into this little presentation that we got going. So, immigrating to Canada from the United States. All right. So, as of today, it's November 25th, 2020, but I believe that this will remain timeless. Yeah, let's dive in, Norbert. So, the overview for today is we're going to give you a brief history. I know, brief history of American immigration to Canada. And this is more just out of interest because it's funny. We look at the history and how people have moved here right back from the times of Britain occupying North America and everything splitting apart. So it's interesting. I like history. I don't know. We're going to talk about the top 10 reasons for Americans immigrating to Canada, benefits of living, being American in Canada, immigration pathways, and how to strategically plan for permanent residence. Okay. Just to be clear, because we hear this a lot, permanent residence is the same thing as a green card. Okay, so in the States, they say, here's your green card. We say, here's your permanent residence. After you're a permanent resident, then you can become a citizen if that's what you so desire. And as an American, you can carry multiple passports, so that's not an issue either. All right, so let's dive in. Norbert, you want to grab this?
Sure. Being a bit of a history buff myself, I don't mind doing this one at all. So, Americans have been coming to Canada since the Revolutionary War back in the 1700s. One of the big pushes of immigration during that war was by Americans who wanted to remain loyal to Britain. More than 100,000 of these came up to Canada, and they were called United Empire Loyalists. And the history of Ontario specifically, and the eastern provinces, is really strongly made up of these United Empire Loyalists that came during the war. So that's the first big push of Americans to come to Canada. We also had thousands of African Americans fleeing the slave trade coming to Canada in the late 19th century as well. And during the Vietnam War, there were over 27,000 Americans who decided to uproot everything and cross the border and come and live in Canada. Throughout this time, though, immigration to Canada by Americans has been pretty constant. But since about 2017, there's been over 10,000 Americans moving to Canada permanently every year, and it's constant and it's still going, and there's always an interest.
Yeah, and just to quantify that, I think that those were Norbert. Norbert put these slides together, and when I saw this, I thought that this really hit the points, really hit the high points throughout history of different migration peaks that we've seen. And what I wanted to, the one thing that I wanted to highlight there is the 10,000 number since 2017. The reason that that's important is that those numbers were actually a lot lower prior to that, and we weren't seeing a lot of push there. But those numbers have remained constant, and what we're seeing now is that for different reasons, people are starting to look, and we're seeing those numbers go up. I was speaking with somebody in the immigration department at one point, I guess a couple months ago, and it was a very cordial conversation. And she had asked me, what are you doing these days? And I had referred back to the significant rise in American interest that we've seen, and she noted to me that the department was looking at that as well, very seriously. And they're also putting a lot of resources to help Americans move here as well, which is interesting. So, and I'll speak a little bit more on that, why the government's interested to see, more Americans on that. And I don't want to presume that I'm speaking on behalf of the government, but I did want to. I was going to impart some of that. So if I don't cover it, Norbert, remind me. We'll keep that as a wrap up. Why the government's so interested in that. All right.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next slide. You want to do this, or should I? Well, I'll do this. How about that? Top 10 reasons to immigrate to Canada. So multicultural and inclusive society. Again, Canada is a very multicultural mosaic, is what they refer to it, as opposed to a melting pot. So when you come here, there's a real, celebration of diversity. We don't actually say, okay, you have to take this pledge and you're going to become a Canadian. We say that you'll have to take a citizenship oath, and then, keep your diversity, keep your culture, keep all of that stuff, and you don't have to melt into what everybody else is doing. World-class subsidized education system. We hear this a lot. Some people, and more than a few people over the years, are coming in from the United States under student visas, and the reason is you can still access a lot of the education, quality education here that you can in the United States. The cost of the education is a lot cheaper, and it's even more cheaper when you start factoring in the cost of the dollar, right? So you're getting an extra $1.25 to $1.30 on that respect. And the education is transferable. The other thing is that it does lead to permanent residency if you so desire. You can have a work permit to work after your education, so you can actually meet those goals. Well, at the same time, you're not going to be lumped with this massive student debt. Universal health care, great retirement, and social benefits. All right, this should actually be number one on the list. And the reason that this is important is it's free health care. The healthcare system, it's very well done when you start looking at it. In terms of a free system, I want to be careful with that comment because it does get overburdened. But really, at the end of the day, if you start looking at other health systems around the world that are free, this one is actually pretty good. It's not a politicized. And again, I should be careful with that. It's not a politicized healthcare environment where we're trading this off as a benefit, depending on who's in office. It is a basic right that we as Canadians see as important. And I, for one, who's lived overseas for 10, 15 years, have seen what healthcare looks like when it's not free. It can be a little daunting and troubling should something happen. Anyways, I'll just leave it at that. Retirement. A lot of people, as I was saying at the outset of the presentation, are looking ahead to what the retirement years are. I have one guy that I'm dealing with right now. He's in his retirement years, and he's actually moving and will be here within the year. to Canada, and he's looking at it as a nice place to spend some time. He's still got his kids in the U.S., so it's nice and close for him to be able to come here. And obviously the social benefits. And again, this is one of the things that I've seen, and one of the things that I've actually really come to appreciate a lot with the current situation, aka the COVID. The government really stepped up and put money in hands of the people very quickly. It was readily available, and through something called the CERB, which is a Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, I think they rolled that thing out within like 3 weeks or a month. Like, it was ridiculous. And the money they just put it out. They put it in the hands. There was no politicizing it, no earmark, none of that. And it got in there. Now, again, I don't want to paint this as some utopian type of benefit, because it does have its issues. There's obviously people that are going to take advantage of it, but there's a lot of people that needed that, and they wanted to make sure that it got out very quickly, so they weren't having to make the difficult choice of putting their healthcare needs as opposed to feeding their family. So these things, these benefits are certainly appreciated. Eventually we are going to have to pay for it. And that's the other side of the coin. But again, when they're there and you need them, it's fantastic. Safe and stable democratic country. So I think, depending on definitions of safe and stable, we're pretty boring politically in terms of our parliamentary system. So maybe we can do another presentation on that someday, Norbert. 10th largest economy that's largely resource-based. Fast-growing tech industry that integrates well with US HQs. So the other thing that we've seen is that we've seen a lot of tech workers that are coming up to Canada, specifically from the United States. And I'm not sure if you're aware of like H-1B visas and whatnot, but these types of visas in the tech industry are integral to having the talent there. And when certain things were popping up in the news, it was putting a lot of strain on the tech industry, because really at the end of the day, these workers and this tech talent is a commodity that any country is looking for in the world. So we've actually have a lot of different immigration programs for tech people that want to move here, that have talent. They have certainly speed of processing times where you can actually have the authority to hire the worker within 10 days and have the work permit within 10 days. And if you know anything about immigration, that is like extremely quick. We have some of the best employee benefits in North America. Again, just look at like maternity or paternity leaves, and that kind of says it all in that respect. Beautiful country that's not too culturally different. Again, and I think this is a big thing. And whenever I'm talking to people, I let them know that, like, I always make the joke of like, America has different chocolate bar combinations. I always like to joke, because a lot of the things you walk in, there's so many different things and things that are available that we don't have here. So, and no, I'm not a chocolate bar fan, but I always use that as kind of, there's a lot more choice and a lot more combinations of things when I look at that. But really, at the end of the day, anything you can really get in the US, you can get here. So there's a comfort level. And as I said, I lived overseas for a number of years, and I know what it means to, travel 3.5 hours to go to a Burger King, right? And I know that sounds weird, and that was back in the 90s, but that Whopper never tasted so good. So, you do have those, I know it's all around food for some reason, Norbert. You do have those comforts available to you. Stable banking and system and economy that doesn't have wild swings. If you look at that, we don't really have a lot of wild economic swings, because a lot of the banking is very conservative in nature. So you're not seeing some of those dents. And again, I know that there's probably some people out there that are a little bit more fluent in economics than I am, but I'm just speaking in general terms. And again, another really important point is that there's some very special immigration pathways and ways that Americans can actually come to Canada a lot easier than some of the other places in the world. All right. So Let's go on to the next slide then. I'm going to let you do this. And yes, there's a few more benefits, but it was a top 10 list, so we wanted to do it in one slide. So go ahead, Norbert.
All right. Well, obviously, one of the big similarities between Canada and the U.S. is English, is spoken language in Canada. We have two official languages, of course, one being French and the other one being English. And the vast majority speak English in Canada, and many are bilingual. But certainly, language is not a barrier for Americans, and this works well with certain immigration pathways as well, where you would need to take designated language tests in order to immigrate to Canada. So Americans generally tend to do very well on those tests. Cost of living is similar to the U.S. Day-to-day wages in that can be higher here. Maybe some goods are a little bit more expensive, but wages are generally higher in Canada, depending on what you're doing. Life expectancy is longer in Canada than it is in the US, not by much, but generally. I think the average life expectancy here now is about 83 point something years.
Actually, I've got that, Norbert, because as you remember, a couple months ago, I was talking about that. So I wanted to get the updated numbers. So Canada is actually 16th in the world right now, and the average is 82.96 between females and males. So that's the average mean. Obviously, women the world over live longer than men. And the US is actually in 46th place at 79.11. So technically, you're buying yourself about 3 years of life. Doesn't seem much, but when you start looking at other countries, I always look at like India and the Philippines, for instance, because we deal a lot with people from there. These separations in the age life expectancies are like 14, 15 years. So again, it's smaller, but it is it is there, and I would probably think that has something to do with maybe healthcare and people going and getting treated and having their yearly medicals that are paid for and things like that. But again, I don't know. But anyways, go ahead. Oh yes, and healthcare is free. I put that in there again.
One of the benefits of those extra 4 years on average that you'll get in Canada is that your health coverage will be free during that time.
Yes.
A little bit less expensive for you here. And Canada is also right now thinking about rolling out some more benefits for drug plans and that for everyone to have access to. So that'll make it even more attractive to come to Canada. Crime rate, at least 50% lower than it is in the US for various reasons. One of them, of course, being that we have very strong gun control laws here in Canada. Well, we won't get into the politics of that, but there's, a completely different attitude to the way guns are handled here in Canada. So that's another great benefit. And I wanted to mention one more thing about the stable banking here in Canada. One of the reasons for that is that we're very highly regulated compared to the US. So when there are major market crashes like there was back in 2008 or 9, because of the regulations imposed by the federal government on our banking system, people came out of it much better than they did in other parts of the world. So we have a highly regulated banking system. So your money is safe in Canada. So,
yeah.
Want to add?
The other thing I was going to say too, in the gun control laws. So a lot of people, I know this is a very polarizing issue, but currently, and there are some changes to it. We just don't run away and take away the guns, but there's, I just look at, like, I used to shoot competitively when I was a little bit younger, and I've been around guns a lot of my life, I actually had a permit because here's a fun fact. I used to put money in bank machines when I was in like 1920. So I was running around. I had, a gun and a vest and the whole deal. But so I'm pretty familiar with it back then and up to now. And there was a process that you had to go through in terms of the courses that you had to take and the certifications and the background checks and different things. So I'd like to dispel some of that, you're going to lose all your stuff. Like there are certain restrictions in terms of the types of guns and stuff that you can have, but you can still own them, but you just have to go through the process, which is, be it as it may. So that is a question that comes up from time to time. I have some clients that are avid marksmen and shooters, and it's something that they ask about. So yeah, I'm glad we got that in there, Norbert. Okay, let's move on. All right, immigration pathways. Oh, sorry, were you done on that slide?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, cool. So immigration pathways. So how do you come here if this is something that you want to do? Now, we have a number of master classes that we have on our YouTube channel where we go into depth in these different areas. However, what I wanted to do is I just wanted to touch very briefly on some of these here because there are a few different ways that you can go. So the express entry system. The express entry system is a system where it's a points-based system based on age, work experience, education, putting it very simply, and then they do draws. As of today, they did another draw, and I just put together another video because I was so excited about it. Because right now is a fantastic time to go through that system, because I believe those points are going to come down quite a bit. So under the express entry system, it's not a program. There's 4 different programs that are under that system. There's the Federal Skilled Worker, the Canadian Experience Class, the Federal Skilled Trades, and also the PMPs. Now, the Federal Skilled Worker, if you have 1 year of skilled work experience in the US right now with some education and you're a little bit younger, you can actually lodge an application here very easily and potentially have just an invitation to come to Canada very easily. Well, there's a few steps that you have to go through, but by and large, it's not you're not going to have to jump through a ton of hoops. Canadian Experience Class, these are for Americans that actually come here, they study, or they've come to work on some intercompany transfer or working arrangement. We see a lot of people under those types of scenarios, and they're like, yeah, you know what? I kind of like it here. I think I want to stay. So we see that a lot. These are the most popular pathways that we see under the express entry system. However, federal skilled trades, if you're a tradesman, if you are a carpenter, a plumber, an electrician, definitely options there for you. We have a couple of draws a year specifically to those trades programs. But again, one of the benefits that an American has in that respect is the language, because when you start surveying a lot of the different tradespeople worldwide, the language skills tend to be a little bit lower because, they're not a lot of guys like, you look at a guy that's laying concrete floors in Italy, he's not sitting there, in an English class, he knows how to lay a pretty mean floor. And that's what he does. So, and again, not to generalize, I'm not calling out people that are working with concrete in Italy for their English skills, but again, these are some things that they've calibrated the system to. But for the right person in the States with the English skills, they can actually go to the top of that list quite easily. Provincial nominee programs. This is where the provinces are able to nominate people. Again, we see a lot of different people in healthcare and tech usually get nominated under that. Work permits. A lot of people will come here under a free trade agreement, such as the old NAFTA. There's lots of different ways that you can move through that, especially for Americans. This one's really special. Intracompany transfers, where you're working for an American company that has a branch office in Canada, might be transferred in. Certainly your points are rewarded in that respect. And again, as I've touched on, the advantages. The education, maybe not higher education, but education for Americans, generally when you start doing the assessments, it generally works out to be about the same, as opposed to some other countries where you might have a bachelor's degree and it might come back as high school plus 1 year. So again, if you have that post-secondary education, it could generally work out a little bit better for you. As opposed to some other areas in the world. The other thing is too, and when we say student visas, we're seeing a lot more students heading up here. One of the things that students can do is students actually, and it's only Americans that can do this, you can actually go and apply for the student visa at the border. And it's the only person that, the only country that's able to do that. Other countries, you have to go through a visa post or submit it if you're in Canada online and you're doing, say, a change of conditions or something along those lines. Those things have to be done, through a visa post or through IRCCs directly. If you're coming up for school from the States and you're an American, you can actually apply at the border, and it's the only country that's allowed to do. Okay, awesome. Let's move on to the next one there.
Could I just highlight, going back to that slide, one thing about all these various programs, one of the big advantages is how fast the processing is for these immigration applications. Like Brandon said at the beginning, a permanent residency here is equal to the green card in the US. Many people know it can take years and years for people to obtain green cards that are trying to immigrate to the US, whereas through these programs and systems, express entry, once you've submitted everything, you could be a permanent resident 6 to 12 months here. So it's a very, very quick turnaround time.
Yeah. It really is. It's we see that, but the other string to that bow is that basically it's probably going to go up, and the reason is that there is an increased interest in that. So again, I know if this is something that you're interested in, now is really the time, because again, I think it's only going to get busier, and then when COVID starts to let up, you're going to see a lot of stress on the immigration department. They're already planning for it, and I know that they're already adapting their systems to increase the number of people, because they're expecting the increase and they've announced it. And plus, with COVID, there's definitely an increase of people that want to come here. All right. So how to strategically plan for permanent residence. It's important when you start anything in life. I know I sound like a parent, but you have a plan and you know what your end goal is. So if you want to come here and you want to be a permanent resident, generally start here, and then we work backwards and we look at the different steps. So again, identify and focus on that end goal. Look at the different strategies to maximize success. So one of the things that we look at is what is the quickest, easiest, and most cost-effective way to get you through the system as quickly as possible. Because trust me, you don't want to hang out and interact. The less interaction you can have with the immigration department or any government agency for that matter, the better. And trust me, they want you in and out the door as quickly as you want to get in and out that door. So again, look at the strategies. You want to maximize your success by limiting the number of interactions and go for the quickest, easiest, and most cost-effective manner that you can. Have a timeline with expected milestones. So one of the things that we do is we put together an immigration blueprint where we plan everything out, and then we have all of that done, and we have a as I say in the last point there, we have a backup plan. So there's always a primary way to go, and then there's a secondary. So I just did a consultation with a lovely lady about an hour and a half ago, and she's coming here. She wants to come here with her husband. So, but they're a little older, and so they were coming here, and they've done a lot of education. So they want to come here as a student. They want to study, and then they want to work. And she's definitely done her research. But here's the thing: her husband was struggling on one part of the English. But I told her, I said, okay, we can do, and for different reasons, we can do the pathway that, your husband's kind of the plan A. But plan B, is she's already here. She would already be working on a spousal open work permit. If he was unable to do that, or he got too old and he wasn't able to get things sorted out in that respect, she can actually be the one to flip it around, because she would be able to go back to school, extend the work permit, and then she would already have the Canadian work experience. So she would just, elevate all that and not have to wait. So it wouldn't be wasted time. Those are the things when we talk about thinking strategically and how to actually figure those plans out. You always have the primary and the backup, and then watching the trends and identifying what's needed. So we see a trend right now because of COVID. It's a byproduct of COVID. The slowdown in the immigration numbers has created this vacuum. Canada's very dependent on immigration. Remember I was talking about those the benefits that we share in the retirement. I was just at an immigration conference last week, and the immigration minister was talking about the importance of immigration to keeping the benefits going. And the numbers that he was giving out was interesting. In 1970s, there were 7 workers to every 1 retiree. Currently, there's 3 workers to every 1 retiree, and by 2035, based on the current trajectory, there'll be 2 workers to every retiree. So, I always joke that it's a Ponzi scheme. We need these workers to kind of keep the benefits moving. So that's basically where they're looking. And again, there's a number of different academic pieces of why immigration would be good to Canada. A lot of people think it's for, oh, these guys are going to steal my jobs. Like, forget about all that. A lot of the consensus that I hear and that I read about is that the population right now sits at about 37 million, but really for the economy to move and different things, it should actually be sitting at about 75 to 100 million to move well. So that's why there's the big push for immigration. Now, just before I finish off here, I wanted to say one other thing and circle back to the conversation that I had with the lady at the immigration department a little while back. Why would they be interested in having Americans come here, and why would they be looking at that? And again, I'm not speaking on behalf of the immigration department, but I look at it like in terms of integration. And one of the things is that it's a lot easier for somebody, moving to Canada is moving anywhere. It's a big challenge, especially when you have family. You want to continue with your job. You want to move into a new home. There's a number of different things. And plus, you've got to get a whole new network. You're integrating possibly into a job market that you're not very familiar with. You might have some language issues that you struggle with. But again, if you're moving in from the United States, chances are, the shock to the system is not going to be that great. It might be a little bit colder depending on where you're coming from, but the shock to the system is not that great in terms of culturally and work-wise and different things like that. So why would that be interesting to the government? Well, the government has to make sure that you get settled in, you get able to become a fully functioning member of the economy. You're able to pay your taxes and you're employed. They want to see you succeed because then they can tax you. And again, I know we'll talk about that another day. A lot of people are fearful of the taxes here. Not that bad. Okay, if you have a good accountant, and that's all I'll say on that. But there's different ways. Yes, we're taxed, but we're not. It's not as egregious as a lot of people think, depending on how you organize things. But again, getting you up and going and getting you into the system is very important. So, the government funds a lot of these settlement services, and again, if there's less things that they have to deal with, like they don't have to put you in language classes so that you need to get up to speed so that you can actually integrate a little bit easier. Again, I'm sure that they're taking notice on that. Now, again, didn't come through any official channels, but I know that they do look at that. I know that there is different, I know that they look at different things. All right. So this is a slide we use in all of our presentations because, again, if you're interested in coming to Canada or immigrating, we always tell people, start off with a plan, implement the plan, be able to execute on the plan, and then you have to think about your settlement. Okay, something that I've been very passionate about for my whole career here. I used to work with people when they were coming into Canada and watch them. Some people struggle and some people do it exceptionally well. And it all boiled down to planning and discipline. Okay, so again, I believe that anybody can do it as long as they plan properly and they have a plan that they can execute on. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us for sure, and we can certainly, let's put up some information for that. So I'll just put that along the bottom. Norbert, did you have any final thoughts? Okay. Awesome.
No, I'm good.
So, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We have a great YouTube channel with some really good videos where we do a little bit of a deeper dive. It's not as fluffy and all of that, but some of the videos we go through and we really delve into the programs in great detail. Great place to educate and empower yourself to get the knowledge that you need. And if you want to reach out to us and it's something that you're interested in, by all means, feel free to contact us and we'll go from there. All right. So I hope everybody's doing well. Thank you very much for listening to us. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Awesome. Norbert, have a good one, man.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Okay. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.